So with years of guesswork, speculation, and rumors, all of that can finally come to an end today with this, the reveal of the Ultimate Collector Series Death Star. I've certainly got a lot to say about this set. So let's just start with the specs, okay? 9,023 pieces. The rumors are correct. This is the very first $1,000 Lego set. Let that just sink in for a second. $1,000 for one singular Lego set. Unheard of until today. So this is it, the Death Star. It is not what we imagined. I myself imagined a spear. This is not a spear. It's a giant disc, really, with a giant interior. And it doesn't look bad, but it's not what I wanted, and it's probably not what you wanted either. So we're gonna find out today if this $1,000 Death Star is worth the price that Lego is asking for, if this was the right design to go with, and how good are those minifigures, because this is setting the record today with 38 minifigures. That's crazy. Now, the minifigures are definitely far from perfect, and we'll talk about that here in a few minutes as well. But that's still really cool. 38 minifigures, 7 of which are brand new exclusive characters to the Death Star. A majority of them are redesigned and also brand new to this set. So you're getting a lot of value just out of the minifigures alone. Now, is that going to justify that $1,000 price tag? We'll come back to that later on. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to aesthetics. Like, do you like the way this set looks? Are you drawn to it? It's an emotional purchase to pull out your credit card and buy a $1,000 Death Star. Seriously, you have to love this thing, in my opinion, to buy it. So now we need to just address the elephant in the room here. It's not a spear. We all imagined, when we think of a UCS Death Star, the first thing in our heads is a giant ball, obviously. This is not that. It's a giant circle or a giant disc, a wheel. There's plenty of jokes about this set. But in all fairness, what it's prioritizing is the interior. I just rewatched A New Hope. I went back and watched it for the 100th time. And I gotta say, most of the time you are in the Death Star. You're not looking at the exterior. There's only a few shots in the original Star Wars movie that really shows it. Now, Rogue One, Return of the Jedi, they're definitely showing the Death Star a good bit more in terms of the exterior. So you can make that argument as well, that the interior is just as important as the exterior and vice versa. So while you can go watch my full-on interview with the design team, ultimately the reason why this design was chosen was to prioritize the interior. They could have done a spear, but it would have been half the size and half the level of detail for the interior. So this is basically the trade-off the design team made. Is this the right choice though? Again, we will find out as we go through this review. And of course, at the end, I'll have my final thoughts after I've built the set, after I fully have just taken this all in, because there's a lot here. It's a $1,000 Death Star. We all had extremely high expectations for what Lego should deliver to us. I think a lot of fans are disappointed. I think a lot of fans are frustrated. I think a lot of fans like this design. It's such a mixed bag of opinions. And honestly, my job here is just to fill in the gaps, to help you understand why this set exists and whether you should buy it or not. And I'll give my opinion, but ultimately, given the price tag, given what this set is, ultimately that decision will be up to you. Of course, that's dependent on your finances. You know, can you afford a $1,000 Lego set? Not a lot of people have disposable income like this. I mean, there's definitely some ballers out there, and this is the baller flex biggest Lego set you can buy. There'll be definitely a market for this, but how many will sell? We'll have to see. I'm genuinely curious, actually. As we look around the box, I mean, this is just ironically funny. This side of the box shows like a full-on sphere, like what we want a Death Star to look like. And I mean, I gotta be honest, this is beautiful. I just want a poster of that. Lego, can you give us a digital poster so I can print it out and put it on the wall? Because that's awesome. This side of the box really just shows how little depth there is to the set. Now, I will say that the actual like interior really pops out a little bit more three-dimensional than it will show on camera. And then on the back side, of course, we have a multitude of different iconic scenes, both from Return of the Jedi and A New Hope. And yes, the meditation chamber is in the Death Star, but to be fair, according to Star Wars Explained, there is is a Return of the Jedi deleted scene where the meditation chamber was on the Death Star. Plus, it's noted on Wikipedia that the meditation chamber is a portable thing, not actually just tied to the Executor Star Destroyer. And then finally, those minifigures. I mean, 38 figures, that's a ton. But seriously, what has to be the coolest figure for me personally is getting Galen Erso, the architect, the designer of the Death Star that we were introduced to in Rogue One. That's an awesome figure. Is that a reason to spend $1,000? Absolutely not. But I do have to say, at least they gave us a really cool figure. And we have the Hot Tub Stormtrooper, a multitude of other brand new exclusive minifigures. And so I'm definitely excited to take a look at this. I also need to mention there is a gift with purchase, which is this, a TIE Fighter with Imperial hanger rack. Basically, all this is an addition that attaches right here in the hangar bay, so you can put a TIE Fighter next to the Imperial shuttle. They're scaled appropriately to each other, and you are going to get 3 more minifigures, 2 Stormtroopers and 1 TIE Fighter pilot. No, the TIE Fighter pilot does not have arm printing, and no, none of the figures, none of the parts in this set are exclusive to this set, meaning you can absolutely bricklink or source all the parts outside of this GWP, meaning you don't need to buy the Death Star day one. If you want this edition, you can just source the parts yourself is the point. But you could make a fair argument that given that this is tied with this, and if you don't open the set and you can just bricklink all the parts, I would just keep this sealed, sell it on the aftermarket, bricklink the parts later on, and you could probably get $200, maybe $150 for this set, and all of a sudden this Death Star doesn't seem so bad at $800. Just food for thought. So with all that said, links down in the description if you want to pick up this Death Star. It's affiliated and helps out the channel, of course. I also have a time-lapse video showing the entire build process of this as well, so that'll be down in the description. And also a full-on designer interview that I mentioned earlier. You can check that out if you also want to hear what the design team has to say. With that said now, it is finally time to unbox this and build the Ultimate Collector Series Death Star. As controversial as this set is, it's insane that it's going to take me the next 30 minutes to show you every single bit of this set. And that's saying something on LEGO's part. First off, there is 3 big boxes on the inside, revealing 2 instruction booklets and each box totaling 6. And I'm not going to lie, it was overwhelming seeing this many instruction booklets, but I like a nice challenge, and boy, was it that. I think it was over close to 2,000 steps between all 6 booklets. In fact, if you stack all of them up, it's taller than a LEGO minifigure, which I just thought was a little fun. As for what's inside each instruction booklet, other than showing you how to build the set, there actually is quite an in-depth dialogue of what the minifigures are, the characters' names, the descriptions, different scenes that have been depicted from the Death Star. Like, it was definitely really well thought out. I love seeing all these pictures and images from the various movies, and I was really happy to see not only acknowledgement of the previous LEGO Death Star sets, but also an acknowledgement of Rogue One and just how big of an impact it has had on Star Wars fans. And obviously with Galen Erso being included in this set, which is the first time and a big highlight to me, and I'm sure a lot of you as well, but also seeing this, a little image from the Andor show when the Death Star is being put together, that was pretty cool to see. Then we have this, a ginormous sticker sheet. There is 50 stickers here. Oh my god, in $1,000 set? Are you kidding me? Not only that, but there's repetitive stickers, meaning it's the same design, which is usually a sign of a piece that should be printed in my eyes. There's curved stickers, which are the worst to apply on. Like, these are just things you don't want to see in a $1,000 set. You know, some stickers somewhat acceptable here, but others are just head scratchers and do not make sense to me. This is one of the lowest points of this set, in my opinion. But on the opposite end of things, there's 81 bags in this LEGO set. 81 individual bags. This is the most amount of bags I have ever seen in any LEGO set. I've built the Titanic, I've built the Eiffel Tower. Those are the highest piece count sets, and this takes the cake. It literally covers my entire table. That's kind of incredible. Out of all of those paper bags, though, there was one clear bag with the Death Star plaque and a few large pieces. But it's finally time to review the Ultimate Collector Series Death Star. This thing's just a mixed bag, right? There's things I like about it, and there's certainly things I don't like about it. It is such a compromise of a set, and we're going to go through every single detail, every single section of this set, but we're going to go ahead and start off with, of course, the minifigures. First up, of course, we have Luke Skywalker in his Stormtrooper uniform from A New Hope when he's in disguise sneaking aboard the Death Star, of course. Following that, of course, we have Han Solo in his Stormtrooper outfit as well. Both of these figures have double-sided faces that will be reused on their other counterparts here in a second. Of course, we have Princess Leia, no skirt piece here, but she does have a brand new torso print. Here's the normal Han Solo minifigure, again, the same double-sided face. We have a brand new Farm Boy Luke minifigure as well with new printed legs. Following that, we have the Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker. This is the same one from the diorama set from a few years back. A sort of new version of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I believe the torso and legs have been updated. Then, of course, we have Chewbacca. Nothing has changed here. R2-D2, which does have the back printing, which is nice to see. And then we have the controversial C-3PO without dual molded leg, which is just unacceptable for a $1,000 set. And it's also worth noting that you can go buy the dual molded C-3PO as a keychain, pull off the legs, and put it on this one for $6, but yet another compromise was made on this figure. Next up is a brand new Ashmik droid R3-T6 with this transparent head, which looks cool, but again, it's frustrating that he doesn't even have back printing. Then we have another brand new droid here, 5D6 RA7. He does have printing on his headpiece, which is the first time we've ever seen that, which is nice to see. Then we have a brand new Imperial shuttle pilot, followed by an Imperial crew member, which looks pretty cool. And then we also have a female version with that new Dedra Meero headpiece, which is cool to see again as well. Next is an Imperial Navy officer in this black uniform, which I really like. Next up, we have an Imperial Gunner here, which I do believe the legs have been updated. Now, we get two of these figures, and each has a unique head print, one male, one female. And then just like the Gunners, we have two Imperial Navy Troopers here, each also with unique faces, double-sided face prints for each of them, which is cool to see as well. Now we're entering into some brand new characters that we've never seen before, starting off with General Tag here with a brand new face print, brand new torso print, no dual molded legs though. The same is for this other brand new figure, Admiral Mahdi, and you can see here he does have his double-sided face with his choke face from Vader, which is kind of cool from, of course, the round table scene on the Death Star. Then, of course, another familiar face from that scene is, of course, Colonel Yularen, or as we know, Admiral Yularen, Anakin's general from the Clone Wars, but of course, he became a colonel for the Empire, and he's all decked out in his white. This is the first time we've seen this figure redesigned since the Polybag, and I do like the double-sided face here. Then we have an almost perfect Grand Moff Tarkin. You already know the story here. No dual-molded legs. That's all that this figure is missing. Such a simple add-on. Following Tarkin, we have some brand new Royal Guards. Believe it or not, they are new. There's a new torso print here, and I believe the cape is new. It's dark red on one side and regular red on the opposite, which is cool, but I would rather have dual molded legs instead of stuff like this. The one figure that received a brand new molded piece is the Imperial Dignitary. This is a little side character next to the Emperor from Return of the Jedi, and it's an awesome inclusion. This is the type of stuff I want to see in a Death Star. I'm glad this character is here. And you can't have a Death Star without the Emperor. Of course, Palpatine is here. Lord Sidious. This figure is not new. It's a reused figure from previous sets. And the same is for Darth Vader. This is the same Darth Vader we've been getting for a couple years now. Nothing new here, including the head print. Then we have, of course, Stormtroopers in this set. You'll be getting 6 Stormtroopers. Not bad, but not great. I was hoping for a few more than that. And then underneath all 6 helmets is a different variant of a head. They're not all the same, which makes sense because Imperial Stormtroopers are recruits. They're not clone troopers like we all know. And they all, of course, come with a blaster. And the best Stormtrooper is this guy, the Hot Tub Stormtrooper, and he looks fantastic. This is the highlight figure for most of you, I'm sure. He has, of course, the only dual molded legs in this set with the bathing suit happening here with the little Imperial logo. Very cute. And of course, he'll have a very specific scene coming up at the very top of the Death Star. Our second to last minifigure is going to be the return of Orson Krennic. After 9 years from the original LEGO Star Wars Rogue One wave, we finally see Krennic return with a brand new torso, brand new head print. He looks great all around. Of course, he has his sporting white cape, and Now that we have Krennic in a Death Star, why not have Galen Erso? This is the very first time we've seen the architect of the Death Star in any LEGO set, and this is a Rogue One's fan's dream, getting this minifigure. And he does have a double-sided face. I love the dark green. This actually kind of would look really good next to Saul Guerrero, and they were friends anyway, so that's a great match. And then you'll notice he's holding a 1x2 tile, which is actually a representation of the plans that both Cassian and Jen steal from the Scarif Vault. That's awesome. This is by far one of the coolest little Easter eggs that is included in the set and does make me happy. Last but not least, we have some brick-built characters, being the mouse droid, and of course, Dr. Ball. Good to see him back. He's working overtime, guys. He's just got too much going on the Death Star. Then we have the printed plaque here on an 8x16 tile. There's a lot of interesting information here, like over 800,000 passengers. Off to the right here, you'll notice that there's a place for both Director Krennic as well as Galen, and you'll notice this computer here in the middle, and that's supposed to be just something for Galen to use. It's not like Star Wars canon or anything like that. It's not meant to be the computer from Scarif, from what I was told. It's just something for Galen to use for those Death Star plans. While the first build of the set that I'm going to show you is the Imperial Shuttle, this is actually going to be the last thing that you create if you choose to buy this $1,000 set. And I have to say, this Imperial Shuttle is extremely well designed. The designer behind it should be very proud of himself. While it's like a very small kind of midi scale size, it's extremely well detailed, very slick looking, and surprisingly has some tricks up its sleeve. Believe it or not, it can actually have foldable landing gear. Did not see that coming. That's pretty cool. And then, there's no way. Yes, you can actually fit not one, but two minifigures in this Imperial Shuttle. So we have the pilot here in the front and center, but if you open up the midsection of this Imperial Shuttle, well, there's a place for Palpatine. That is this right here. There's even some studs on the side there to place Palpy Boy, and that's an interesting inclusion. I kind of like that attention to detail. And then you can just park the Imperial Shuttle right here in the hangar of the Death Star. Now it is finally time to enter the LEGO Death Star, see all the different rooms, all the different features, take a look at this very, very controversial design, and analyze it and see if it's any good. And spoiler alert, there is a lot to like about this set, specifically the interior. Like, that is the main showcase here, and it is really well done. Like, I've had a blast playing around with this set, and over the next 10-20 minutes, you'll quickly see what I'm talking about. There is a lot more features than you would expect in a set like this, especially a Death Star. I was not expecting this much playability. But it comes at the cost of this. A giant disc instead of a ball. This is one of the most controversial aspects about the set. And then on top of that, when you look at the backside, ugly. But that's not a deal breaker for me. I mean, you're going to put this against the wall anyways. And it's also not meant to be hung up, by the way. For those of you wondering, it's meant to only sit down on some type of shelf or a desk. And I gotta say, as we look at the Death Star from a distance, obviously it's a disappointment given that it's not a sphere, but when you go in and actually pick it up, it's massive, like absolutely huge. It's one of the biggest LEGO Star Wars sets. In fact, it is the biggest, spoiler alert. We'll compare it to some other Ultimate Collector Series sets here in a few minutes, but yeah, when I pick it up, it just barely fits under my chin as I carry it around. Now, something that really caught me off guard is that there is no LEGO Technic structure here holding this together. It is all LEGO bricks and brackets. That's it. That is extremely impressive. It means a very enjoyable build experience, which I do have to say was a lot of fun building these modules, making the Death Star bigger and bigger as you build it all the way to the very top. Everything here is brick built. There is very little Technic, except for maybe the elevator shaft and a few functions. So this Death Star has 6 different levels, and we're going to take this one bit at a time. Starting off with the hangar bay, which has this really well done brick built star background.
only to be contrasted by these terrible stickers here on the floor of the Death Star. These should have been printed pieces. And there's more stickers here on this little elevator shaft, which unfortunately doesn't have any function. You can drop a minifigure through, but that's about it. Off on the left side of the hangar, we have a little control panel as well as a hookup module for R2-D2 to interact with, of course, the Death Star. There's also some other fun Easter eggs here. Then we have our first sliding door, which will be where you can enter the very first level of the elevator. And as you can see, there is a crank that drives it right down. You can put up to 2 minifigures in here and pull them up and down throughout the 6 different levels of the Death Star, which I have to say is a lot of fun. This was something that was a huge highlight of the 2008 and 2016 versions of the Death Star. It's a very easy function that you just use at the very top, and as you can see here, it does work really well. It's cool to see the elevator go from top to bottom, and I gotta say, I had a lot of fun pulling up my favorite characters. To the left side of the hangar, you can add both Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader, and of course have Vader strike down Obi-Wan, kind of recreating the scene that we see, of course, on the Death Star right before the Falcon escapes. Next to that, we have the trash compactor here, which does actually function just like the diorama that we got from a few years back. In fact, it's kind of just a little bit of a smaller version of that put into this Death Star, and it looks just as detailed as that diorama, which is a compliment. It has a bunch of different details. There's a little fork off to the side, which I thought was very funny. And it's unfortunate because you can't see the details unless you actually take out a module. Now, the function here for the trash compactor is on the very back of the Death Star, very easy to activate. And this is the module I'm talking about. You have to remove this to really get your hands in there. And this is actually now on the 2nd floor of the Death Star. This is a hallway scene, and you can see here we have a little door off to the very left side, which you can open up and have Dr. Ball come out and visit. Now, you can use this hallway to recreate various scenes like Obi-Wan versus Vader, for example, but you can do others as well. Then we have these 2x4 printed tiles. This is one of the highlights of the set, is this new printed pill lights piece, which is used throughout the set, which is nice to see, and I hope to see in other LEGO Star Wars sets because I think that's a very useful piece for mock makers. But if we pull out this module, you'll notice that, yes, there is a mini kit hiding here in the back. Fans have already spotted this from the images online, but probably what you didn't see coming is there's also some LEGO Star Wars video game coins here as well. So not only do we have the mini kit, but we have the coins. That's a great combination of an Easter egg for hardcore LEGO Star Wars video game fans. On the 2nd level to the right of the hangar bay is the control room that we see R2 and C-3PO hang out in. Unfortunately, there's no closet really for them to hide here. But this is a very difficult room to access. Like, I had a difficult time getting minifigures on here. I wish it was removable like other sections are in this set, but it is very detailed and it is 100% stickers in there, which is terrible to see. There is also a window so you can have a Imperial officer look down at the Falcon, even though the Falcon isn't in this scene, but you know what I'm talking about. Now, moving on to the 3rd level of the Death Star, this is where we'll find the prison block, and you can see here there's plenty of control panels. There's the cameras that, of course, the gang shoots out. There's even some indicators of the elevators, even though they're not functional in the back there, and you can, of course, recreate the iconic scene with Han just having a wonderful conversation. Off to the left here is where you'll actually find the prison where Princess Leia is being held. There's a little sticker here as an illusion, and when we open up this door, you'll notice that there's a little clear piece, but it makes more sense when we actually open this side where there's a little hidden door, and this will reveal the actual prison that Leia is being held in, and that clear piece is where you can put Dr. Ball, or the medic droid from the Death Star, and interrogate Princess Leia. And then there's actually enough room here to have Darth Vader and the droid, which is pretty impressive. And this, again, can come in and out of the prison area. So it's modular. I think that's really cool. It's a little tough to see from the actual door, especially lighting wise. You kind of have to be looking carefully. There's also an indentation of a trench run off to the side here, I should note. But wait, there's more. There's another feature where you can actually have the figures dive into a chute, which will lead to the trash compactor from the prison level, which I think is really cool. That's an awesome feature. I've done it a bunch. It totally works. We have an opening door to another section of the elevator, and then to the right of this, smack in the middle of the Death Star, is the reactor core that, of course, if you use this, would blow up the Death Star. This is, of course, an indication of what Luke would use with the X-Wing and would blow up the entire system, which I think is really cool, and I think that's a great little Easter egg that the designer included. Off to the right here, we have another little fun Easter egg of a stormtrooper proper measurement tool to make sure that they're just the right height. Back in the Death Star, we get to the section where Obi-Wan would reduce the tractor beam here, so he's sneaking around this little larger section of the Death Star, and there's a little area for him to hold on and kind of hide away from the stormtroopers, and this whole section is on a little Technic beam, which you can move back and forth. To the right of this, we have a little miniature hallway, which does have an opening door, which will reveal Vader's meditation chamber, which is a modular section that can be pulled out. When you do so, you'll find a little Emperor Palpatine just hanging out here saying hello to Darth Vader, which I thought was funny. This is a sticker, unfortunately. Same goes with this wall art, which is pretty cool, though. My favorite Easter eggs being the, of course, pod race, and then we have the N1 Starfighter, and an Episode 2 Padme with a little heart there. Got to give props to the graphic designer for that one. Love that Easter egg. As for Vader's meditation chamber here, it's very simple. You just open it up like so. You can twist them around in the chair. You can pull off the helmet. Now, the function here with how the chamber opens up and closes is extremely simple. It literally just pops on and off to lower it between this little beam, which surprisingly works. It's a little silly, but it works. And there's also a section to put some officers on the opposite end to talk to Vader, which I also think is an interesting inclusion as well. Making our way now to the 4th level of the Death Star. This is where the super laser is, which I gotta say is one of the coolest sections of the entire set, and actually has one of the most low-key but awesome Easter eggs of the Death Star. This is my favorite Easter egg, actually. You'll need to remove the entire Death Star laser, and on the back here is this little module. And wait for it. Is it clicking in your head? That's right. Cesar, the designer, intended to have an Andor Season 1 reference to Cassian and Kino building these little devices from Narkina 5 on the prison sequence of Andor, and he just had to have that part of the super laser. He was telling me about it, and I was just like, dude, that is now the best LEGO Star Wars Easter egg I have ever seen, at least in my opinion. Next, we have the Death Star Super Laser Control Panel here. This is also modular that you can pull out. All of these computers here are stickers. I wish these were printed pieces, of course. Very frustrating. There's some studs here against the tiles that you can place those Imperial Navy troopers, and there's also a few more studs where if you want to place Darth Vader, Princess Leia, Tarkin here to recreate a certain Alderaan being destroyed scene, well, there so happens to be another function here where you can do that exact thing, and I gotta say, this is really cool. It's very simple, it's easy to recreate, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, who doesn't want to destroy a planet, am I right? The mechanism can be seen like this on the backside. It's very simple, and also means you could swap this out for some other planets, maybe Scarif or Jeddah. Might have to print my own custom pieces because I really want to do that now. There's another opening section to the elevator off to the right here. You'll notice that little white ingot behind the door indicates that the elevator is ready for you to operate. And then off to the side here, we have the little bridge that can be extended just by playing with this gear like so. And if you want to retract it and have Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker swing across just like in A New Hope, you can do that as well. There's a little geared mechanism on the next floor that allows you to use that function. Now, off to the very right side of the 4th floor, we have the conference room here, which does have a removable table, which you absolutely need to use in order to actually get your hands in here to get the Imperial officers around said table, because this is not a modular section that pulls out, which I think is a mistake. It's unfortunate that we can't yank it out. Now, I will say if we include Krennic, there is enough officers to feel like this room is somewhat filled, but there's still some empty chairs, which is frustrating, but you can still at least recreate some of the most iconic scenes. I do like that there is a nice detail of Tarkin having that taller chair. You do notice this in A New Hope if you're looking closely, and I'm glad there is that attention to detail for the conference room. Now we make our way to the final levels, the 5th and 6th level of the Death Star, which obviously houses the Emperor's throne room. But first, off to the left here, we have another control panel area for the super laser. Those have all those big lights that we see right before the laser is about to fire. There's even a little window, but this room is very hard to access. There's no easy way to get in there. You can stick your fingers and a figure in there, but it's very tricky. Off on the very top side, there is a removable panel to open up the entire Emperor's throne room, and of course you can have some fun here as well. But we'll come back to that in a minute. First off, where Palpatine sits on his throne here in his nice swivel chair, you can see that this is basically a slightly scaled down version of that $100 diorama set that we got pretty recently, just like 2 or 3 years ago. The chair here is a new design. It's not a full rehash of that set, nor is this whole area. It is all pretty much redesigned, believe it or not, and it does look really good. It integrates so well, and in fact, I think this is better than the diorama in a lot of ways. There's more playability here, including a little function for Luke to be thrown off here on this platform by Vader, and this is actually pretty easy to reset. It's surprising that that function's even there in the first place, and you can have a lot of fun, you know, using lightning with the Emperor, striking down Luke, making Vader make some choices here, and specifically my favorite part is just over and over doing this, having Emperor Palpatine, Lord Sidious just fall over and over down the shaft. This is how, of course, he supposedly died. Thanks, Rise of Skywalker. But my point being is that this is one of my favorite functions of the entire Death Star, and it makes it feel like it's coming alive. Off to the right side here, we have another opening secret door, basically, with an Imperial gunner inside. And this is where he has this giant turret, and there's just the one seat. But it's an interesting inclusion, but a good use of space, I suppose. Now, you can put the roof on or off. It's up to you. I prefer to have it on just for that complete circle of the Death Star. I wish it was a spear, of course. And then off to the left, well, we get to the best part now, the 6th level, where the hot tub stormtrooper finally makes his appearance. So as controversial as this set is, this has to be one of the coolest Easter eggs. It's not my favorite Easter egg. That will go to the Andor reference. But this is definitely a runner-up and will probably be a lot of your guys' favorite Easter egg. The hot tub stormtrooper has a place to go and have his spa day at the very top of the Death Star with his rubber ducky, his red mug. There's a little control panel to give him some extra bubbles that you really need after working very hard on this giant death ball. The details here include some beautifully designed stairs, excellently crafted. Inside the hot tub, you'll find iconic water studs, obviously a reference to my Kashyyyk mock. The hot tub stormtrooper, for those of you who don't know, comes from the original LEGO Star Wars video game and would be followed up in the sequels, LEGO Star Wars 2, The Complete Saga, and the Skywalker Saga. And then we have, of course, some extras off to the left here. We have a little radio, we have a sponge, we have a microphone for the hot tub stormtrooper to have karaoke night, and even in the very back corner there's also a bottle of soap that you just need for those extra bubbles on those tough days on the Death Star. All jokes aside, we have the final section for the elevator to go to the very top, the 6th level, where there's a little hidden door here that you can just yank out, and surprisingly, if you have a light at the very top of the Death Star, you can have this little bit of light cast down on the stormtrooper, which I don't know if that was intentional, but it really sets the mood for this scene and just makes you wonder, when are we going to get another AT-OT with dropship? The final Easter egg of the Death Star is going to be right here at the very bottom side on the back of the Death Star, where you'll find a little reference to octane, the fuel of choice to LEGO, though I do wish this was Calcite though. Now, as ugly as the backside of this Death Star is, I can actually appreciate this for its sole fact of just utilizing bricks to build this entire structure. There's no Technic being utilized here, except for a tiny bit for the functions and the elevator shaft. It's like 98% bricks, plates, and tiles, and a few brackets here and there to put this entire thing together. And given how tall, given how big this set is, that's extremely impressive, because both the Falcon and AT-AT use entirely Technic to make those sets work, and the fact that this is all just classic Lego bricks does make for a very enjoyable building experience, and I do think that is something that you should appreciate, especially at $1,000, that it is a lot of fun to put this thing together. Again, this is a very controversial design choice. It's not what I wanted. It's what a lot of you didn't want either. But now that you've seen everything in the Death Star, you got to admit this thing is pretty impressive, at least when it comes to the interior. And while the minifigures are a huge letdown with the dual molded legs not existing, with the lackluster usage of printed pieces, like we could have gotten at least a few more printed pieces for those more repetitive sections, especially on the hangar bay. Like that really frustrated me. And it's not even the application process of the frustration of putting a sticker on a Lego piece. It's the fact that this is a set that you'll keep in your collection for years, if not decades. And we all know what happens to stickers, especially when it comes to sunlight. Over time, they begin to peel. They begin to look uglier and uglier. This is a really big pain point for us fans. Like, I want more printed pieces because I want this set to look pristine for the years and years to come. But now there is one final thing to do here, which is compare this Ultimate Collector Series set to some other notable UCS sets as well. First, we're going to bring in the Ultimate Collector Series AT-AT Walker, an icon amongst the UCS line. We all know and love it. It's a jewel. It's now been retired. It was on shelves for over 3 years. It had 6,785 pieces, 9 minifigures, and retailed for $850. And when you're simply looking at the specs, the Death Star suddenly doesn't look so bad in terms of its value. Keep in mind, the Death Star has 38 minifigures and 9,000 plus pieces for $150 more than the Death Star. On top of that, as you can see here, the Death Star is also bigger in terms of its footprint and overall shaping here. It's even a little bit taller than the AT-AT Walker. Now, is this enough for you to be convinced that it's now worth $1,000? I don't know, especially when you look at this angle of the Walker versus the Death Star. It just, again, makes me frustrated that we couldn't even have half a sphere. Like, if we just had an outline of a sphere, that would really go a long way to making this Death Star that much better. And when you compare the interior of the AT-AT Walker, I would say, obviously, the Death Star is far superior, even though I thought that AT-AT Walker's interior was already top-notch. Now let's bring in the Ultimate Collector Series Millennium Falcon. Originally on sale for $800 back in 2017, today it goes for $850 with 7,541 pieces and 8 minifigures. And again, as you can see here, the Death Star is bigger, especially in terms of height and just overall feeling. It is impressive just how massive the Death Star is. Now, again, shape and design aside, it is impressive that this is one of the, if not the biggest Lego Star Wars set now. And I also have the Falcon on its side with a third-party stand. That isn't included. That's like another $100 in Lego parts alone. So we're not even counting that. And again, for $150 more with the Death Star, you get 1,500 more pieces and 30 more minifigures than the Falcon. It's in line with other Lego Star Wars UCS pricing, even compared to the AT-AT and Millennium Falcon. So in that regard, it's a fair price. Now, obviously, one of the biggest pain points when you look at these 3 sets is 2 of them are completed on the exterior. Only one is an open interior. And this is where the fan frustration comes from, is that we have these wonderfully built UCS sets with interiors. Now, the Falcon does not have a full interior like the AT-AT, but on the other hand, it looks amazing on the outside. And that's just where the Death Star falls short. It makes sense in some regards, and others, it's just a head scratcher. Now next, just for fun, let's bring in the last Death Star that we got from a few years back, being the gift with purchase Death Star 2, and there's just a small size difference here. No big deal. Obviously, this new one, just a little bit bigger than the last version that we got as a free set during May the 4th. And I should also note, it's really funny that you can just place this Death Star within the actual Death Star. I don't know, just something fun about this. But now let's bring in the jewel. Fans all agreed that this playset Death Star that lasted from 2008 all the way up until about 2020, 2021 when it retired is an everlasting icon of the Lego Star Wars just sets in general. Play sets, UCS sets, it's an amazing overall set. But when I do compare the interior of this set to this new Death Star, it is not aged as well. There is still a ton of fun to be had with this 2008-2016 Death Star. It had its refreshed version with refreshed minifigures, but was the same set. But when you look at the set all around, it's a sphere, whereas the new one is a flat surface basically on one side. And then there's also features that the other playset Death Star from 2008, 2016 has that the new version doesn't even have. But then on the reverse course of things, the new version also has features that the old version didn't have it. So it's kind of a wash in that regard. But what about the Death Star 2? The 2005 completed exterior that we were all kind of expecting, at least half of which on this new Death Star we expected in our heads, I think, to have at least half of the exterior completed so we could display it in various ways. At least that's what I was expecting. Now, when I look at this 2005 Death Star 2, obviously this hasn't aged well. It uses very simple techniques, but from a distance, it still looks like the Death Star. It still looks pretty good, and I actually still think fans are going to prefer the look of the 2005 Death Star against this 2025 version. Now, am I being unfair here saying, oh, this completed exterior looks way better than this completed interior? I mean, they're two completely different ideologies happening here of what a Death Star can be. One is a fully completed exterior with no interior, and one is a basic bare bones exterior, just a circle, basically a flat pancake, whatever you want to call this, but it has a fully completed interior. It's just like, why can't we have both? Is it not possible to make it happen where at least we can have a little bit of that shaping of the iconic Death Star? I don't know about you, but that's what I really want. Now, I've got to admit, when I look at all three Death Stars on the table side by side, there is something to like about each one of these. The completed exterior of the 2005, the playset / spherical shape of the 2008 version, and then this 2025 having such a well-done interior is something to be appreciated. Finally, the last comparison is let's bring in the other 2025 Ultimate Collector Series sets that launched this year, Jango Fett Starship, or really the Slave One, as well as the ATST. This is a $300 set and a $200 set on the left. And I gotta say, it's interesting to look at this year's UCS set lineup. $1,000 in the middle, $300 on the left, $200 on the right. Which one would you choose, right? If you could have any of them, price aside, which set would you choose? Is that even a tough question for you guys? Like, I actually really want you to think about that for a second. Don't make a split choice decision. Think about that one. I'm curious. If price wasn't a consideration, which one would you choose? With that said, I'm so mixed about this Death Star. There's a lot to like about it, and there's a lot to be disappointed about.
So I've been trying to figure out how to wrap up this review for some time now. Because I have so many thoughts to say about the Ultimate Collector Series Death Star. So where do I even begin here? There's just so much to say about this set. Obviously, it's extremely controversial, mainly due to its design. There's just no way around this. It's a weird design. It's a giant open-faced dollhouse of a wheel. It's not even a spear. I've seen all the jokes online, but it's not that bad. That's how I feel about the Death Stars. It really isn't that bad. In fact, it is growing on me. I am starting to like this set. But my opinion is very skewed by what I do here on YouTube. So I asked my friends, would you go out and buy this for $1,000? I showed them all the set, got their opinions, and a lot of them actually said that this was the right direction, that this felt more interesting to them because of all the playability that you can have with this set. Way more than you can have with an Ultimate Collector Series Millennium Falcon. Even more than the AT-AT Walker, which had a completed interior on the inside, which was kick-ass. I still love the AT-AT Walker. It looks incredible. And the Death Star does not look like a spear. It's just a big wheel. It's a big circle. Whatever you want to call this. And I think that is the biggest issue with me, is the design. It's not even the minifigures, not even the sticker usage, as crazy as both of those are. I just wish this was more in line with the Batman Shadow Box, which clearly this set took inspiration from. That set had a full opening door, but it was still exposed so you could see the interior. And I think that's what's missing with the Death Star. I think some type of spherical structure, not even completed with panels, but just some type of outline of a circle or half a spear on the front with some type of hinge to open up. I think that's what this set is really missing. It's just that spherical shape, at least on half of the build. Without it, it doesn't quite feel like a Death Star on the exterior point of view. But when you do start diving into everything in here, it is incredible. Like, it really is. Like, props to the designer. he did go above and beyond and truly poured his heart into every single detail. It shows throughout the build. It's incredible just how many scenes from A New Hope and Return of the Jedi that are jam-packed into this Death Star and actually flow together and work, and it doesn't feel weird. It naturally has a flow to it, and it just feels nice. Like, the interior is incredibly well done. That is the biggest compliment I can give the Ultimate Collector Series Death Star, is well done on the interior. This is incredible. Exterior, completely different story. Way too many compromises made here. It should have been a half spear or something like that, where it feels more like a ball in some ways. That's my opinion. The argument Jens, the head of LEGO Star Wars, made to me was that the interior is way more important than the exterior of the Death Star. You're spending way more time inside the Death Star than you ever are around it or looking at it on the exterior, is what he argued from the Star Wars movies. He felt like this was the priority for the team. Was that the right choice, though? I'll let you guys decide. In my opinion, I think a balance would have been more appropriate here. There is an inherent awe to a giant freaking ball with a laser to it. Like, we all love that design of the Death Star, and this isn't feeding that itch that we have for that giant ball. Hopefully there'll be like a Death Star 2, I imagine, full exterior, big ball set that we can just put on display, and that'll inherently make fans happy. As crazy as it sounds, for what you get out of the set, even with the incredible amount of compromises made throughout the entire set, not just with the build, but the minifigures too. Lack of dual molded legs, specifically on the officers and C-3PO, are just frustrating because you're spending $1,000. You should get the best of what LEGO offers in their lineup, and you don't, which is mind-blowing to me. And the team did tell me that they wanted to include more minifigures instead of reducing the figure count and then giving us dual molded legs and all that, but I think it should have been the reverse. But in my opinion, I would have subtracted 4 figures from the lineup and given us the dual molded legs and the arm printing and all the extra details that could have been done for a lot of these minifigures. That's my opinion, though. This is now the sole LEGO set that has the highest minifigure count in the entire LEGO portfolio, which is saying something. That is cool. But you're not getting the best that LEGO offers in terms of its minifigure quality. These two figures, Galen Erso and Orson Krennic, really do enhance the minifigure lineup. Like, I'm so glad they're here. Of course, we have the fun stuff with the Hot Tub Stormtrooper. The Imperial Dignitary is awesome. There's tons of cool figures here. They're not perfect, though. They're not perfect. They should be perfect for a $1,000 LEGO Star Wars set, but they're not. There's so many compromises made with this set, and it's so frustrating. There's just so much going on here. If you can't tell, I'm very overwhelmed by everything here. By the price point, by the figures, by the sticker usage, by the design choices. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to swallow. But at the same time, there's a lot to like about it. Once you get to experience it, and really when you compare it to some of the other Ultimate Collector Series sets, it feels its $1,000 value. As crazy as that sounds, it does feel it, just barely. The amount of bricks, with the building experience, with what you get out of it, the playability, the Easter eggs, there are inherently cool minifigures here. And when I heard the rumors that this wasn't going to be a spherical Death Star, before the leaked pictures came out, I was ready to steamroll this thing down and call this a complete embarrassment to the LEGO Star Wars team. But I do feel a lot different than I did just a few months ago when I heard those initial rumors. I remember seeing the leaked picture, and all I did was just kind of sit back and just go, interesting. That was my reaction to seeing the first picture of this. And when I went to LEGO at headquarters 2 weeks ago and got to see the Death Star in person, I was like, okay, that is bigger than what I was expecting. It's a bigger spectacle than you might imagine it to be, which is a good thing. It should be a big spectacle for a $1,000 set. Let me make that very, very clear. And I do feel like it does do that. It's crazy just how much is going on here. I mean, yeah, when you flip this thing around, but inherently this is going to be against your wall on the back of a shelf. That's not a huge deal. That's not a make or break for me. I just wish it was spherical, or at least half spherical. Some type of outline of a sphere is what this is missing for me. But when we look at the bigger portfolio of LEGO sets, I'm looking at Rivendell for $500. There's more printed pieces. There's a little bit more enhancement to minifigures in that set comparative to what you're getting out of this. And that's a licensed set too. And it just makes me scratch my head wondering why so many compromises had to be made for the Death Star. But inherently, this is what we have. It's not a slap in the face in my opinion, but it is just tough. It's tough for me to recommend with all the compromises that LEGO has made here. Inherently, you want a $1,000 set to capture your attention, and I do feel like this Ultimate Collector Series Death Star does do that. Like, look at all the sets around me. Your attention is on this set. And even if I had it on the shelf behind me, your eyes are gonna go to that thing, because it's just, there's so much going on here that you just want to look at it. You want to explore it. And that's what you want from this type of set to begin with. So as frustrating as all those stickers are, as frustrating as the lack of dual molded legs, as frustrating as this design choice of the Death Star, I will still tentatively recommend this to the fan that already appreciates and accepts the design. If you can get over the dual molded legs and the sticker usage, I think spending $1,000 on this set is not inherently crazy. You've seen the Death Star, right? I've shown you everything possible about the set. All the Easter eggs, all the rooms, all the minifigures, the design choices. I've given you my personal opinion here. It's now on you to decide whether you want to save up and shell out $1,000 on a LEGO Star Wars Death Star that looks like this. That's up to you. It's really going to be an emotional purchase for a lot of you out there. You have to love this set to spend $1,000. Me, I would be buying this for $1,000, but that's because I'm a completionist. I'm not in love with the set, but I like it enough where I would want it in my collection. That's really going to be a case by case from fan to fan. There's plenty of you out there that just hate this set, will never consider buying it. That's fine. I think LEGO probably knew that when they were making this design choice to begin with. I would only be recommending this set when doubled VIP points are happening. Get 10% back. That's $100 in credit, which is really nice. Double VIP or insider points happen every few months, and I think that's where I really would steer fans, is just wait to get a little bit more incentive out of this after that gift with purchase has passed, of course. Then yeah, I could see if you're getting 10% back, it's $100 in credit. It's a $900 Death Star if you subtract that. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not perfect, not by any measure, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It's the first $1,000 LEGO set, first $1,000 LEGO Star Wars set, most amount of minifigures, one of the largest sets in the lineup. Like, there's a lot of records being shattered here. We'll see if sales are one of them. Thanks again to LEGO for sending this set over for review. Links down in the description if you want to pick up this set. Hope you guys have a great, wonderful day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.